Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Amanda Ziadeh with WashingtonExec, and with me today to discuss how GovCons are supporting and recognizing veterans as we near Veterans Day is Erick Peters, Health Portfolio CTO for Accenture Federal Services, and a U.S. Navy veteran himself. So thank you so much for being here today, Erick.
Thanks, Amanda, for having me.
Of course. So, Erick, tell us a bit more about your personal connection to the veteran community.
Sure, absolutely. It goes way back. My father was a U.S. Army veteran. I was raised in the sort of the military ethos and the veteran ethos. It was a focus from childhood. I ended up serving in the U.S. Navy. One could argue maybe somewhat to my father's chagrin. He may have preferred that I had gone the Army route. But I served in the U.S. Navy myself, including during 9/11 and being deployed at that time. And then as I transitioned out, I've very intentionally sought to continue to serve veterans, active service members, their family members, and beneficiaries wherever I can.
Wow, awesome. Well, thank you for your service and appreciate you being here to talk about this with us. So I'm wondering if Accenture Federal Services is kicking off any specific initiatives for Veterans Day.
Sure, absolutely. So every year around this time of year, we have a National Day of Service where we dedicate a day across the entire organization. And we also make sure that when we do that, some facet of that is focused on service of veterans. Accenture Federal does quite a bit of work supporting veterans on the IT side and AI implementation and data services and all sorts of things. But this is an opportunity for us to identify organizations that are focused on veteran healthcare, veteran mental health. And so we have quite a handful of individuals who this year volunteered to spruce up a facility that brings veterans in and gives them a safe space, a clean space to manage through some challenges that they might be dealing with from a mental health perspective. So it's a really good opportunity to give back and volunteer, but it's also an opportunity to understand more from a firsthand perspective. At the same time, from the larger global Accenture, we've launched an initiative specifically this year that, not surprisingly, is focused on upskilling, transitioning officers and senior enlisted military into the realm of AI, in particular, data services, et cetera. So it's a time when having those very unique skills would be very critical for their transition. Obviously, there's a lot of challenges that veterans go through, having experienced it myself, transitioning from military service. There's a ton of skills there that we really want to benefit from, and insights and experiences. There's an empathy that veterans bring, having lived in that world, in that realm. And so being able to complement their experience with very targeted experiences, in this case in AI. So offering them free training, free upskilling, some job transition advice, resume writing, the full gamut.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, and we know many veterans are in the GovCon communities, and that's a year-round initiative, I'm sure. So how does Accenture Federal Services recognize, work with, and support the veteran community throughout the year?
Sure. So it is a year-round. You could argue that no one has offered greater service to our country, and so making sure that we recognize them not just on Veterans Day, but around the calendar. And so, as I mentioned, we do quite a bit of technology services in support of the VA. And so we're constantly exposed to what is the veteran's experience in referred care into the community when they're seeking healthcare. What's the veteran's experience at a VA medical center? How are technology services, everything from cloud hosting, how are faxes optimized? How do we serve the VA employees who then serve the veterans? How do we support them with key enterprise solutions? And so we're immersed in the mission of the VA year round. We're very intentional about ensuring that we have folks like myself who have a service background sprinkled across those programs in meaningful ways in leadership roles. That ensures that we always have the empathy that's required to understand the veteran perspective and also understand the VA employee perspective. Many folks at the VA are veterans themselves, but we also want to make sure that we're serving the individuals that are serving our veterans equally. And to that end, it's everything from, as we onboard new employees into a program, making sure from a human-centered design perspective that they understand the mission of the program. It's one thing to deliver a cloud-hosted thing in an Amazon or a Microsoft or a Google Cloud. It's a very different thing to understand what is the mission of the application that you're hosting. You're not just moving a piece of information from one side to another. You're providing a veteran access to needed healthcare. And when everyone on the program, veteran or otherwise, understands that mission, it makes them do their job better. It makes them show up to work with a different sort of focus and energy. And we think that that's critical. And so it's how we onboard folks, how we conduct ourselves in meetings, key veterans in leadership roles. And then we also have a resource group that's focused on veterans and bringing our veterans together and giving them an opportunity and a platform to discuss, what did they experience that week and that month? What challenges are they maybe personally having? What could we do better as a company to serve our veterans that are in service to the VA across the board?
Wonderful. And Eric, tell us a bit more about the role that you play in these efforts and perhaps the rest of the company in their involvement.
Sure. So my role is technology and innovation for how we serve federal healthcare customers. So that's everything from Medicaid and Medicare, Social Security, but in particular the VA. My role in that is making sure that we bring innovation in a meaningful way that serves the mission of the VA and the outcomes for our veterans. And that is uniquely challenging because there's always a new technology. We're seeing the explosion of AI right now, and there's a lot of noise in the ether about how effective is AI, how are we going to make it effective, how do we make sure that it's properly adopted. And so I involve myself in how we solution for challenges that the VA is facing. So when a request for proposal comes out, there's a particular challenge that the VA is seeking assistance with from the GovCon community. How do we solution that in a meaningful way? How do we measure the outcomes? We can bring lots of technology, but only some salient facets of it are going to be really meaningful and beneficial. So that's, getting involved at the very outset. I also involve myself across all of our VA programs. We have quite a few. We really touch the veteran almost in the full life cycle of the experience of being supported by the VA in numerous ways. So making sure I involve myself with those programs and bring that veteran point of view or voice of the veteran, but also making sure that we're being cost effective. Every dollar we don't spend on technology is a dollar we can spend on healthcare services for veteran outcomes. Every time we save a cloud credit, and be more efficient in the IT realm is more money that can be focused on veteran care, healthcare, mental health initiatives. And so it's really, really critical that we are continually focused on spending the dollars where they have the biggest impact. And then, when working on transitioning programs, if perhaps a program has gone from we've been building a new capability to now we're just going to sustain it, how do we make sure that that transition is seamless and nothing gets dropped and there's no adverse impact to the veteran?
Absolutely. Well, Eric, thank you so much for sharing these initiatives with us. My closing question to you is, and it's clear to see via your personal connection to the military service, having served yourself and Accenture's many initiatives, but why is it important to you and your company to continue recognizing veterans and supporting them and their families, not just on Veterans Day, but of course, year round?
As I mentioned earlier, many folks have served their country. I'm very hard pressed to come up with anyone who served it more than a veteran who has, actively served in military service and now deserves and has earned that ongoing support. Veterans, the family of veterans, the beneficiary of veterans, and so it's really critical that when I was in service, my job was 24/7, 365. When you're a veteran, you are a veteran 24/7, 365. So we owe it to them to support them 24/7, 365. And while I love that we have Veterans Day as a day to focus on that and making sure that that's a day that everyone says thank you for your service, and it's a good reminder, we need to carry that forward through every week, every month, and every engagement. I'm been very happy. I had spent about a decade at a company called Cognosante that was acquired by Accenture Federal. We were very focused on that mission. There are many companies that might say they're mission driven, but living that in the ethos of the company, living that day to day, seeing that in how decisions are made, where dollars are spent, is exceptionally meaningful. I was ecstatic to discover as we went through the acquisition process in the last year and the transition into Accenture Federal, to see that Accenture Federal also lives at an equal level. And so we've been very fortunate to find ourselves in a place where we actually have access to even more resources and more capability, with a focus that comes from the CEO level of Accenture globally to the CEO of Accenture Federal Services, to the leadership of the health portfolio that serves the VA directly. At every level, there is an ongoing focus year round about making sure that we're hiring veterans, we're upskilling veterans, we're focusing on that community. But I think most importantly, as I mentioned earlier, and I'll sort of close with this, that we are delivering technology services in a way that is adopted, that doesn't waste any dollars in that regard, and that measures outcomes for veterans, their access to care, their clinical healthcare outcomes, veteran satisfaction, their ability to receive the support and services from the VA that they require. And so that support requires 24/7, 365. So I'm very fortunate to work at a company that has that focus and brings that focus.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, Eric, thank you so much for being here today and for sharing this with us, especially during this time. Critically important missions for the veterans. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for doing it.